Think about the last time you were driving for a long time. You are watching the road in front and you notice a car way ahead. It looks tiny, just a small dot on the horizon. As you keep driving, the space between you gets smaller. The car appears bigger. You can make out more details. That car isn't actually getting larger. You are simply moving through the space that was between you. Your movement compared to the car is what creates that change in how you see it. This is the most basic way we understand motion. Things move because forces push on them, moving them through the arena of space. Now, I want you to clear that whole picture from your mind. Set aside everything you think you know about how things move. Let's look up, away from the highway, away from Earth. Let's look at the universe. Back in the 1920s, an astronomer named Edwin Hubble was studying distant galaxies using the most powerful telescope available at that time. He was trying to determine how fast those faint, cloudy spirals of light were moving. And what he discovered was so strange, so deep, that it completely broke our most basic understanding of motion forever. He noticed that the light arriving from these faraway galaxies was stretched out. It was moved toward the red end of the color spectrum, something we call redshift. Here on Earth, we understand this effect well. When an ambulance speeds past you, the sound of its siren drops in pitch as it travels away. The sound waves get stretched. Light behaves the same way. If a source of light is traveling away from you, its light waves get stretched, moving them toward the red. Hubble saw this redshift, and the natural conclusion was that these galaxies were moving away from our location. But this is where it becomes strange. He then looked at a galaxy that was farther away. Its light was stretched even more. It was moving away faster. He examined another one, even more distant, and it was receding at an even greater speed. It was not random. There was a clear pattern. The farther away a galaxy was, the quicker it was moving away from us. It seemed as though we were positioned at the middle of some huge cosmic blast, the center of everything. At first look, that is a very humbling and frightening idea. We are the central point. Everything is running from us, but wait, hold on. Let's use that questioning mind that we all possess. If everything is moving away from us, then we must be the unwanted, repulsive center of the cosmos. But that does not seem right. It feels too neat, too unique. It places us back in that old way of thinking before Copernicus, where everything revolved around the Earth. And if you are a careful scientist, a thoughtful person, you immediately become doubtful of any idea that puts you in a special spot. The universe should not care about our existence. So, what is actually happening? Let's try a simple mental experiment, the kind that Richard Feynman enjoyed. Picture yourself as a tiny creature living on the surface of a rising loaf of raisin bread. You live inside one of those raisins. This is your galaxy. The dough surrounding you is space. As the bread bakes, the yeast does its job. The dough expands. It grows larger. Now you, the raisin creature, look out at the other raisins in the dough. What do you notice? You notice that every other raisin is moving away from where you are. The dough in between you and them is stretching. But here is the crucial point. If you were to jump over to a different raisin and ask the creature living there what it sees, it would tell you exactly the same thing. It would observe all the other raisins moving away from its location. From its viewpoint, it is the middle. Every raisin sees itself as the center of this expansion. No single raisin is the actual center. The center is not a spot in the dough. The expansion is a feature of the dough itself. This is the first break in our natural way of thinking. Hubble's finding was not that galaxies are flying through space away from us. It was that space itself is stretching. The galaxies are similar to the raisins, mostly just staying where they are, while the material of the universe, that strange invisible dough, expands and carries them along with it. This is the contrast between moving through space and being transported by the stretching of space. So we have made our first move. We have let go of the idea that we are at the middle. But now we have arrived at a much deeper, more disturbing question. If space itself is stretching, if this cosmic dough is growing, then what is it expanding into? What exists beyond the outer layer of the cosmic loaf? Our minds are built to think in terms of containers. A box holds its contents. A room contains a table. The universe, we suppose, must be held within something. There has to be something outside. This is where our natural understanding does not just crack, it shatters completely. Because when we ask what the universe is expanding into, we are making a basic mistake. We are using a rule that works fine in our local area, in our solar system, even in our galaxy, but fails completely when applied to all of existence. We are treating the universe like an object, and it is not an object. To grasp why this question is so difficult, we have to let go of another deep habit. We imagine the universe as a bunch of things floating in a huge empty space. We think of space as a passive empty platform where the action of matter occurs. But physics, starting with Einstein, tells us something completely different. Space is not a void. It is a real thing. It has qualities. It can be bent, twisted, stretched, and curved by matter and energy. It is not a platform. It is a flexible, active fabric. And this fabric, this space, has a form. Now, what do we mean by form? We cannot picture the form of the universe because we are inside it. It is like trying to make a map of the Earth's surface without ever leaving the ground. For a long time, people thought the Earth was flat because that is how it looks from where we stand. It was only when we could get away from it to view it from a distance that we understood its true form, a sphere. We cannot get outside the universe. We are stuck inside it. So we have to figure out its form from the inside using mathematics and reasoning. Let's return to that raisin bread comparison. But let's improve it. Instead of a loaf that has a border, a crust, pick to a loaf that has no crust. Actually, forget the loaf. Let's picture a simpler universe. Let's picture a two-dimensional universe, a flat, endless sheet of paper. On this paper lie two-dimensional beings. They can move left, right, forward, backward, but they have no idea of up or down. For them, their whole reality is the flat plane of that paper. Now let's say this paper universe expands. The lines on the paper stretch. The distance between any two spots increases. Our flat beings see their world growing larger. If one of them was clever enough, it might ask, what is our world expanding into? But from our three-dimensional viewpoint, the answer is clear. It is not expanding into anything. The paper is simply getting bigger. It is still the same endless plane. It is not expanding into the third dimension. It is just stretching within its own two dimensions. Now, take this one step further. Instead of an endless sheet of paper, picture a limited one. But we have to remove the border. How can you have a limited surface with no border? Simple. Take that sheet of paper and roll it into a tube. Still has borders. Not good. Instead, take that sheet and bend it into a sphere. Now you have the surface of a ball. This surface is limited. If you are an ant walking on a beach ball, you have a limited amount of area to cover, but you will never ever find a border. If you keep moving in one direction, you will eventually return to your starting point. The surface of a sphere is a limited space with no edge. Now, let's place our flat beings on this sphere surface. They are stuck on that curved surface. They do not know it is curved because they cannot see the third dimension, the one we are viewing from. Their whole reality is that two-dimensional curved space. Now imagine that sphere inflates. It grows larger. The surface stretches. The flat beings on the ball see the same, the thing the raisin bread creature saw. Everything is moving away from everything else. But now let's ask our difficult question again. What is the surface of the sphere expanding into? From our higher dimensional viewpoint, we can see it. It is expanding into the three-dimensional space that holds the sphere. The sphere is getting larger and the empty space around it is the into. But here is the key mind-bending part. For the flat being, that into does not exist. It is a dimension it cannot access, cannot see, and cannot measure. For it, the universe is expanding, but there is no outside because its reality is defined completely by the surface it lives on. The expansion is a feature of its universe itself. Now take the final jump. Upgrade the flat being to a human. Upgrade the two-dimensional surface to our three-dimensional space. And upgrade the three-dimensional sphere that the surface is wrapped around to a four-dimensional hypersphere. We cannot see it. Our brains developed to hunt and gather on the African plains. They are not designed to picture a four-dimensional shape, but the mathematics handles it perfectly. Our universe, this three-dimensional space we call home, could be the three-dimensional surface of a huge four-dimensional hypersphere. If that is true, then asking what the universe is expanding into is like the flat being asking what its beach ball is expanding into. The answer is into a dimension you cannot understand. A dimension that is not part of your reality. For us, the expansion is built in. It is the stretching of the material of our three-dimensional reality. It does not need an outside space to grow into because the expansion is just a change in the features of our own universe. This is one possibility. Another is that our universe is endless. It always has been. It always will be. If something is truly endless, it cannot get any larger. You cannot add to endlessness. So what does expansion mean for an endless universe? This is a puzzle that shakes the mind. It means that the universe is becoming less dense. The distances between galaxies are growing, but the overall size of the universe, well, endlessness does not change. Picture an endless number line stretching from negative infinity to positive infinity with all the numbers spaced 1 unit apart. Now, expand it so all the numbers are 2 units apart. You still have an endless line stretching from negative infinity to positive infinity. It is the same size, endless, but the material on it is more spread out. So expansion is not about size, it is about scale. So when you ask what it is expanding into, the answer depends on which of these mathematical models is correct. If the universe is endless, the question has no meaning. It is not expanding into anything because it already fills everything. It is everything. There is no outside for it to expand into. If the universe is limited but without border like the hypersphere, then it is expanding into a higher dimensional space we cannot see. But even then, that higher dimensional space is not part of our universe. It is not a place we can go. The issue with the question is the word into. It suggests a pre-existing emptiness, a void, a container. But space and time themselves started at the Big Bang. This is the deepest change in viewpoint we have to make. The Big Bang was not an explosion that happened at one point in a pre-existing empty void. The Big Bang was the sudden beginning of space and time themselves. It was not that everything was squeezed into a tiny point in some larger space. It was that everything, all of space, all of reality was a tiny point. Picture a book. The universe is not the words on the page. It is the page itself. The expansion is not the words moving farther apart on the page. It is the page itself growing larger. Now, what is the page expanding into? That question only makes sense if there is another page next to it, if there is a bigger context. But if that page is all the pages that exist, if it is the whole book, then it is not expanding into anything. It is just becoming a larger book. This leads us to a strange and isolated conclusion. We are used to being inside things. We are inside a house, inside a city, on a planet, in a solar system. We are used to the idea of layers of containment, like a set of Russian dolls. We pull back one layer and find another. We look beyond our galaxy and see other galaxies. We look beyond those and see the huge sea, cosmic web. And our instinct is to keep going. We want to pull back the final layer. We want to find the outside. We want to open the final biggest Russian doll and see what is inside the container of everything. But what if there is no final doll? What if the dolls do not stop? Or what if, when you get to the last one, you open it and find it is not hollow? What if it is solid? What if the universe is all that exists? The container and the contained are the same thing. There is no outside to step into because outside is a spatial idea and space only exists within the universe. The question, what is the universe expanding into, is a beautiful question because it reveals the limits of our imagination. It shows us that our brains, so skilled at handling the world of medium-sized objects, are completely insufficient for grasping the whole of existence. We are forced to use mathematics as our tool, not to see distant stars, but to look into the structure of reality itself. And the mathematics tells us that the question might just be a mistake in language. It is like asking, what is north of the North Pole? It sounds like a question, but it actually is not. Once you understand what the North Pole is, you realize the question disappears. You cannot go north of the North Pole because north is defined as the direction toward it. In the same way, into is a direction defined within space. To ask what space is expanding into is to ask for a direction outside of direction. It is an idea that defies being an idea. So, we look up at the night sky and we see those galaxies rushing away from us. Their light stretched and weary from their long trip across the expanding material of reality. And we know they are not running from us. We know we are not the center. We know the space between us is simply growing. And we are left with the deep, humbling, and amazing understanding that we are not watchers of the universe, standing outside of it, watching it happen. We are a part of the happening. We are not just in the universe. We are made of the universe. The same processes that stretch the light from distant quasars also control the bonds in the atoms of our bodies. The cosmos is not a platform we walk on. It is our larger self. And when we ask, what is it expanding into, we are really asking about our own deepest nature. And the answer, whispered back by the red-shifted light of 1 billion galaxies, is simply this. It is not going into anything. It is simply becoming more of itself.